We're doing it.
We're doing it, Bambos. We're living the dream.
Hello, guys. Check it out.
Check it out. Bambos wanted this. I wanted a baby that had its arm stretched out. It tells you
It
a little bit where our heads are at before a show.
it was a little bit like the hands of the baby was holding my head. I was like, no.
No, I wanted the one when the baby's arms were stretched out. I mean,
Yeah.
we should leave it to a vote. We should put both on and we should ask Bolalang which one Bolalang would prefer.
No.
Well, we are going to be having an hour, we hope, because we haven't seen our guest on yet, with, I'm going to say the name, Stefanie Nicolaou.
Stefanie Nicolaou.
Oh, nice. I like the way you pronounce that. Stefanie Nicolaou. And Stefanie is replacing another guest who wasn't able to show up, and we stuck with the same theme. We had a midwife who had delivered hundreds of babies, and then we realized we had another person on our network, Stefanie, who had delivered, we'll find out how many, but she's a doula.
Yeah.
And when you use the word doula, it like confused the hell out of me. So we're going to talk to her. We hope we'll find out soon enough, Stefanie, about what life is like as a doula. Where are we going to do that? Possibly, quite probably, and maybe on Bambos.
A wonderful chaos, Mr. Shayla. A wonderful chaos.
A wonderful chaos. That's the joys of winging it, Bambos.
The joys of winging it, Andy. And you know, we what I love about it is that there's never any stress. It's like, okay,
we'll figure it out. We'll talk about your life, if anything, right? We'll go back to your life if there's anything.
Bring up the ratings a little bit.
So one thing that I just had a little bit of a laugh at is I thought to myself, actually, I don't have any children. You do have one child that you're not having so much contact with, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Like we're having this, I don't even know if Stefanie has any children, but I thought, isn't it fascinating? We're talking about a subject that none of us possibly has all that much personal experience. You do though. You have one.
Yeah.
Don't have any contact with them, but you know.
I fucking hate you so much.
That's for another show.
Like sometimes I know that you're just saying something and I'm like, okay, impact.
I'm waiting to see, am I going to get the tissues out for you in a second?
I'm going to have a newspaper every time you trigger me. I'm going to bitch slap you live.
So Stefanie was really sweet of her because she came in just because we thought, let's stay with this theme.
Yeah. Now, Stefanie's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
She's one of the people I always make sure I visit when I visit Cyprus.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, she's quite embodied as a person. We're going to have her on another show, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but she's someone that has used her past pain to also bring healing into the world. So in a way, I would say she's also a wounded healer.
Beautiful.
And you know, like you go to her house, Andy, and because she's really good with her hands, like she builds things.
Okay.
Like her whole house is like an extension of her heart.
Oh, really?
It's really.
I love houses like that.
Yeah, like and she builds these dream catching beds, these constructions. She also sells them. She's a doula. Like everything she does is like heightening awareness, giving life color. She's like a proper woman. Like when we talk about feminine, proper feminine.
So have you two hooked up yet?
Not yet.
Is there love in the air though? Do you feel like there's a possibility there for maybe something?
She's taken.
Oh, nice.
There's so much love between us that it doesn't have to be expressed sexually.
I know it so well. That's beautiful.
Nice.
So when you said the word doula today, it confused the hell out of me. And it kind of like, I thought in this fantasy world, you know, I thought of, as soon as I heard the word doula, I thought of like Harry Potter, you know, like there's this magical doula that sort of appears at these magical moments in a person's life, you know?
She is a magical doula, Andy.
But then I thought about it after I had this humorous moment. I thought, you know, if you think about it, if you're going to have a baby, I mean, in life, there are very few things that are so out of what you would normally do that you would want someone with experience around you.
Yeah.
Like you can't, like, who would want to have to go into an experience like that and say, you know what, it's happened a million times before, so that's enough. Like, I'd want to talk to a few people who had similar experiences that can tell me what to expect.
I once asked Andy, hey, don't you want any children? He's like, I'm happy.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you said I'm happy. Why would I bring misery to my life?
No, I wouldn't have said it like that.
Look at no, he wouldn't.
I think I've eaten or something. I've got some smudge on me.
Andy, we're live. There was one more thing.
What's that?
That, like, Stefanie,
yeah,
her relationship with her mother, for example, is so beautiful to witness, and with her father.
Oh, really?
And like, when I see her, when I hear her speaking about her and her work as a doula, I can't help but feel her mother through her.
Oh,
like, I get that vibration from her. And
wow.
And maybe I'm wrong, but at least I'd like to check in with her on that one.
It's funny you say that. There's some people, when I'm with them and their families, like, there's some sort of beauty in the connection that I experienced. Like, unlike, my mom and dad, of course, mom died and dad was a bit miserable, but like, I as soon as I feel the love, like, I'll get tears in my eyes. I called up a friend once, Stephen Palmer, who he and his wife will always have some struggle, but when I called him and I just showed my gratitude, because in seeing how he was raising his family and how he was treating the kids and how the kids were developing, I just felt this beauty in how they were, how they were going about it. And and it's beautiful. It's incredible to see that. It gives you, like, kind of this weird, you look up to a person who's trying to do the best they can, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I love that you did that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because I think I left a real dysfunctional environment, so I wanted to share the gratitude that I experienced when that wasn't dysfunctional.
Love it. So shall we bring her on?
Let's bring her on.
Is she ready?
I hope so. She's moving around a little bit, preparing for the shot. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Just had to change rooms because my Wi-Fi dropped, but I'm here.
Nice.
Stefanie lives in Nicosia, on the borders of the north side, the Turkish side, and the Greek side. And normally the Wi-Fi in that part of the town is really bad.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how these kind of things on Cyprus? Like, if you live in this part of Cyprus, don't expect good internet.
Well, it's more a case that I go there and I work, and it's like, oh shit, I can't work in this part of the city.
So tell me, before we get into real discussion, before you met your current boyfriend, did you find Bambos attractive like most women that meet him?
Well, attraction has different levels.
Ooh, you're not going to get a straight answer from Stefanie.
I love it.
To his soul, as like a brother.
Yeah.
I could recognize his soul.
Yeah.
So in that way, yes, I was very attracted to him.
Beautiful. I love
like
that.
we've given workshops together. And
oh, have you?
Yeah,
then when you go to Cyprus and you do your workshops, you'll do them together then.
We've done some workshops. What did we do? We did something on tantrum. We've done also connection.
Authentic
relating.
Connection.
Yeah. Bambos does that well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from being around Bambos.
Why do you look like that?
Oh, I'm getting a lot of validation. Not used to it.
You're really good. No, you are good, Bambos. I've seen the way you hold space in the authentic relating groups. They're really, really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stefanie, this is the most boring question I'm ever going to ask you, but I'll ask it anyway just for the show. How do you? Where does the word doula come from?
Yes.
Actually, the word doula is a Greek word. It has a Greek root. It means doula, which means a servant to a woman.
Okay. I said to Andy, I think it means slave.
Yeah, that's what Bambo said right before the show. He's like, this is weird.
But I thought I'm probably wrong. Like, wow, servant, woman.
And actually, it has a deeper meaning than that, because I remember when I was training, my teacher asked me, "So you speak Greek and you want to be a doula?" But of course, after having huge discussions of the actual service being, I am there for the woman, meaning I'm totally surrendered myself to be in service for her and for birth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I can imagine a woman that's going through that would want someone in such a position. They want to feel like they can actually have really the idea of a servant that can serve them as they're going through this very, very potentially intense experience.
Yeah, it's very beautiful to be part of that, and to see how historically women always had women around them supporting them. And it's not just for the practical, mainly not for the practical, but mostly for, I see myself as space holder. She will do it alone, no matter what. She has to go through that tunnel alone, not to just birth the baby, but to birth herself. And I'm just there holding space for her and reminding her that stay focused, you can do this. So
I've got a totally random question that but are there any male doulas?
Yeah.
Yes, an answer to the question, or yes, that's the question you have.
No, yeah. In Amsterdam.
Well, Bambos, I'm asking her. Why are you answering?
Well, good to know there are some in Amsterdam. But I know one, my teacher actually, not the doula teacher, but something else I do, tantric work. He is training to be a doula. So,
wow.
And I can see why. So I guess there are some, though mostly, I mean, I haven't met any man that's a doula yet.
I have.
Oh, wow. I mean, you can imagine that for a female, you'd think to yourself that, hey, I'd prefer a woman only because they might be able to identify more within my experience. That would be the idea, I guess.
I think so, as is the same as some women prefer gynecologists to be female.
Yeah.
Then we go to the role of the midwife, which as well the majority is female. For some reason, these professions maybe has to do with the caring role. Not to say that male body people are not caring, but it's like you don't find many mechanics being female, right?
Yeah. It's okay. We work with stereotypes on this show. It's fine.
So how did, like, I talked about your mother earlier. How accurate was I in my description?
I want to take a second to put this on because I can't hear you very well.
Oh, okay.
So let me see if I can hear you better with this. Hello?
Yeah. We can hear you.
That's better.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's
okay. Yeah, I was very touched by your description, actually. You touched me.
Yeah.
I
she
feel
has a great mama.
It was really accurate about my mother, because there are actually some qualities that are not taught to us. They're just passed to us, all the way from being inside the womb, and being cared for, like our ability to care for someone, and that deep sense of care. It really comes from back when we're in the womb and whether we receive that connection with the mother. I really feel that inside me. Yeah. Nice. That is from her.
Wow.
So what brought you into this work, Stefanie? Like specifically doula? Because I know you do a lot of things. Specifically this, what made you jump into this?
Actually, since I remember myself, I wanted to work around pregnancy. I wanted to be a gynecologist since I was 3 years old. So I was always attracted to that belly. I wanted to go touch it and like something magical there. So through my journey, I studied embryology and then left that. But the point I remember when I discovered there is something like a role of a doula, it was when I was living in Spain in this eco village where women were giving birth mostly at home with midwives and doulas. And what made me really attracted to this, it was the power that I saw in these women and their children, the difference where I saw children being born with C-section, for example, before, because I wanted to be a doctor, so I was observing operations and stuff. And then those children, and I'm like, oh my God, there is something right here. And I looked into it more, and so many synchronicities happened that, it was a real inner yes, this is what I need to do.
Wow. You know, I love that you just, what I find fascinating is that, you know, I often find that the people that follow more non-traditional routes, like the doula being a more of a midwife, not going to a hospital per se, they don't necessarily have had a background, a medical background. So the fact that you actually had, is what I just understood, a medical background, and then gone from that into becoming a doula is quite amazing. You have kind of both sides of that coin. You've seen how it works one way, and then you're actually doing it the other way.
Yeah, embryology is a clinical science, so it's all around the fertility and conception and all this. So I know the science of that, of pregnancy, the hormones and everything. And yet, you're right. There was something, I saw that there was something missing in that, and in the extension of that in the medical system, which is, I would call it the humanness, that which is not seen and touched, that which is, our emotional nature, for example. So I was like, birth is not a disease. And we put it in a hospital with other diseases.
Yeah.
And it just never felt right inside me until when I observed what is possible. It gave me this possibility, like, wow, it's possible to give birth like this. And it's possible that humanness and that, I'll use the word magic, to exist instead of the mundane, procedures and
Isn't it great that we have this subject with two guys? Okay.
Yeah. I was laughing, thinking to myself, we're talking. I have to be honest with you. When I looked at the subject today, I'm like, oh my God, we're discussing a subject that I don't see how, I'm not going to carry a show. Like if you were really boring and had nothing to say, it's not like I'm going to say, oh, but midwives, Bambos,
Stefanie, also being from Cyprus myself and knowing how dogmatic things are and religion and like an idea of right and wrong is very strong there when it comes to religion. And at least when I was there, it was quite male dominant as an idea. And the feminine I always felt was a little bit more suppressed. Like when you were in Cyprus and you were studying this, like how was it looked upon when you would talk about it? And were there more practitioners back then?
Yeah, actually, I didn't study this in Cyprus because there was nowhere to study in Cyprus. And I wanted to study with a specific person, which is world famous, the pioneer of natural birth, Michel Odent, who is actually a gynecologist. So I worked in the UK and I was in Spain and the US. And then I decided to come to Cyprus. So my first birth in Cyprus was actually unassisted home birth, which is like, if we put a spectrum from all the way from unassisted home birth all the way to C-section. An assisted home birth is the most, let's say, what's the word to use around it, but less ordinary. Yeah.
Would you also say it's the least, would that also imply the least supervised, meaning was there a midwife in the room when you were doing that as well, or were you alone in the room with the person giving birth?
It was just me, her husband, and her, and the baby.
Wow, so, that was your first experience?
Yeah, so as a doula, that was the one. So it kept, and it's not to say, obviously, like having the medical professionals around is wrong, but and that's not for everybody. And so that woman was strong enough in herself, and that's the only way she saw herself giving birth. So she just she was a bit skeptical asking me to be there, because she thought that I would criticize her. And I'm like, no, we're on the same page. Don't worry. I feel very grateful to be there. So that birth put my standards really high as to the essence of birth. How is birth in its raw form without all the, sauce around it? The woman sounding as much as she wants, taking her clothes off as much as she wants, just following that instinct, which is what is birthing, not here from the instinct. So when I had that as my first birth experience, then here in Cyprus.
Can we stay with that? Can I ask you some questions about that before you continue?
Sure.
Like, how was that for you? That was your first. I know you said you had some medical experience, but how was that to be in the room and have that experience for the first time?
Literally, when I walked in the room, she was already pretty in labor. So I felt the feeling of entering something sacred. Like a temple, when you enter a room and you feel the reverence. It was the sounds that she was making, which kind of pulled me in that room and asked for me to really be silent, to tap into another state of being straight away. So there was no talking, there was no communication through the neocortex, which is the thinking brain. It was just observing what's happening, and really we can say so much with our bodies and our facial expressions and our breath, and our intuition is so sharp when we're in that state. So I was just there, and I remember Actually, that birth was before my doula training. It was like right before my doula training. So I didn't have any training, but it was like, oh yeah, this birth is happening. You want to go there? Yes, of course.
Bring a beer.
So I went there, and all of a sudden, the only thing that happened, apart from that very sacred silent space, it was that I saw her losing her center and feeling like tired and like, whoa, I saw her losing it. So I just said, just focus on your breath and you got this. And then I don't remember how long after, because in that space is literally timeless. You don't see the clock or nothing. It's just breath and contractions. And suddenly the baby's, I saw the baby's head. So she goes to me, she was squatting and her partner was holding her from her underarms, and I happened to be in front of her. So she goes to me, just watch out if the umbilical cord is around the neck.
Yeah.
Which is one of the myths, let's say, that lead us to have many medically interfered births.
Yeah.
But we're both knowing that this is not the case. So I just wanted to reassure her that, don't worry, it's not going to be. And yeah, when she had another breath and the head comes out, the cord was around the neck twice. So literally, instinctually, I just took it out of the neck and put it around the head, and in another push, the baby's out. So she knew it. She like really knew. She felt it that the cord was on her neck. She told me. I tried to reassure her, but yeah, without knowing what to do, I knew what to do. It was so
like when I hear you speak about this woman giving birth, it sounds like she too was quite embodied, like to have that instinct and that connection. Like I can't imagine, and maybe I'm wrong and I don't want to come across as discrimination, but a woman that potentially works in the corporate world and has a very focused mindset, like a lot of times I notice that most of these women in that world are a bit more disconnected from their bodies and more in the head. And I'm wondering if this woman was actually the type that was really sensitive to everything that was happening for her. Or is that a consequence of just having a baby in the belly and then you connect?
You opened so many doors with this statement.
Yes.
So,
let me ask you quickly: Did the woman go to yoga or not?
I'm not sure actually. She was doing yoga.
just to simplify everything.
Just to simplify it. Just
to simplify. But to answer your question, you describe really the nature of birth, because birth happens from the part of our brain which is the primal brain, which means we literally need to be able to shift from the thinking brain. Like now we are in the thinking brain, we have a conversation to the animal brain, which is totally different. So in our society, the way we've been brought up and the way we create ourselves with structures, and yes, women being in corporate world and functioning, they're masculine more or with their brain, and not balancing that with ways to breach the animal brain, which is that which when we feel that when we are connected with our bodies, and we allow it, like sex, for example. You can have sex when someone starts saying like, imagine having sex and someone goes, what are we having for dinner? You're totally in another space, right? So it's the same thing.
I was gonna say, has she been listening in on me?
So Stefanie, there's something that you're saying here. Sorry. So we're not talking about the thinking brain, and we're not talking about, you talked about the primal brain. That's like the instinct.
Wow. When you're talking, I often have the empathetic kind of feeling in myself. So I kind of hear myself go to the space you speak about, not intellectually, but and I'm like, wow, that's it's like I can give you once I drove off a cliff. I don't know if you know this, but I drove off a cliff. We like went down 13 times, like, like lucky to survive sort of thing. And there was a weird sort of space time that slowed down to and everything got so focused and it was such an intense moment that the adrenal glands were kicking in and everything was firing. And I'm wondering if that's sort of for the person as far as that, is that the kind of experience that you're pointing towards, like this sort of heightened awareness where stuff is going on and your whole system is sort of pulsating, or how would you describe what the other is experiencing at that time, at that moment?
Actually, it's similar in a way that time stops, but opposite in a way that adrenaline, which is the hormone that is produced when in danger, fight or flight response, is the opposite of the hormone oxytocin, which is the main hormone that drives birth. So these two are antagonistic. So you can't have adrenaline and oxytocin at the same time.
You can't?
So,
can't.
and
You can't.
oxytocin. You
I know,
cannot.
but I was going to say, you cannot have those two at the same time.
Yes. And that's why in our environment that we create for birth is so hindered because there is so much stress around. The woman is observed from all corners. She tries to open and yet she has all these bright lights around her, people observing her. It's so difficult for her to go inwards,
Yeah.
you know? And if you see animals, other mammals, like, because we are mammals too, what do? They go to a remote place, they build their nest, they prepare so that they can access that that space where they can give birth. For us, it's so much more difficult because we develop our thinking brain far beyond than any other animal, you know? So there are two factors here, the adrenaline versus oxytocin and the thinking brain versus the animal brain.
As you speak, yeah, it makes sense. And the weird thing, it makes so much sense that I'm now confused why anyone would go to a hospital. Because if I thought about it, like this is kind of one of those miracle experiences you get to have in your life. And it's sort of weird as you describe the animal going and making the perfect nest for that experience. I think, wow, that's the experience I would want to have if I was going to be doing this.
Yeah. When you talked about earlier about the woman that you actually facilitated in the beginning, that she was making her sounds and she took off her clothes, like in the hospital, the women are on the bed, right? Like lying down.
Well,
or has actually, it changed?
We are in a transition period. This is like a worldwide epidemic, I would say, that we shifted from that, which is how we're made to give birth and what our body really needs to access birth, into a hospital, which is very clinical, not homey, observation, lights, is not a nest. So, sorry, I forgot the question. What did you ask? What did you ask?
I was just asking you about the woman that was. It sounded that she was having a liberating experience to give birth, and in hospitals, it feels like it's a bit more restricted.
It's a transition. Yeah. It's a transition period because we started realizing that there's something wrong. Why do we have 65, some countries 95% C-sections? There's something wrong here. So we started shifting towards creating hospital environments which are more homey. And yet it is a transition period because there are so many factors that we've created in the system in order to be safe and clinical, but taking away the humanity again. So some women prefer to be in the hospital, in the clinic, or have a midwife at home. But really is nothing to judge here. We all have our own journeys.
Yeah.
And maybe she feels more safe to open in a clinical environment. That will help her in a way. Okay, I have my doctor, I'm safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because in the end, we can't say, like, just that I got excited about that experience. It doesn't discount the fact that for somebody else, that would be such a horrible experience that might even be so stressful for the birth. So you're really looking for the experience that gives the greatest ease. Yeah.
And yet we are very far away in the sense of having birth in our daily life. Like 100 years ago, we would hear our neighbor giving birth. Our mother would give birth at home. It would be part of our life. So since birth was taken out of the family and the community and went to the medical system, it has become something that we give it to someone else. So that's why I said it's a transition period, which needs education.
Yeah.
And what we were saying before, embodiment. So remembering to trust our instincts, be connected with our bodies, and give birth.
It all sounds so logical, actually. Yeah.
I have two questions for you. One was
why is that smile on your face before you ask the question? That's what I want to know.
I'm just happy to be with Stefanie. Stefanie, how many births have you done so far?
I really stopped counting. I don't
Is it
remember.
Hundreds?
No,
that's like asking her how many. It's like asking a woman how many men have you slept with. At some point, they're like, you know what, we don't.
You know what? I have to go back and count that one.
But listen,
not that there are many hundreds of men, but like I don't count. Really, the number
I was trying to figure out if we should put the title back as before.
But are we talking over 100? I think that's what the question is. I mean, are there over? No. We're talking about births now, not about the men. But how many births would you say, just in general, over 100?
I think it's about 50 to 60 births. No more than that. It's a very I devote myself to the people I work with.
Yeah.
So it's not about quantity for me.
No, clearly.
And I've only been doing that since 2014. So yeah.
2013. So in 7 years, you've done about 50, 55 or so. What was the
14.
second question?
The second question was, during the course of doing these natural home births, was there any instance where you had to go to the hospital?
I don't just do home births. I support home births, but I go where the woman goes.
Okay, but was it? I'm talking about going to the hospital because of complications that you were like, oh shit, this is serious.
Okay, just to make it clear, home birth, where I am here in a country where it's really, some people even still think it's illegal. It's not illegal, but some people it's not illegal.
It's Cyprus, Andy.
That's interesting.
Yes. So it's really it's very rare to have a home birth, and because there is no system around it, there are no midwives that they can come at your house. There are no doctors that would support you. They think you're crazy, you know. So I decided from the very beginning, having seen that experience and having worked abroad as well, and trusting birth, that I will support these women no matter what. If I see that the woman is ready, because some women will say, yes, I want a home birth, but it's a fantasy. I help them to come in the reality of everything, and really throughout the course of pregnancy, see if they're really matching for that experience. So I didn't have, in the home births, I didn't have any case where we had to transfer for emergency, but because there's no system around it, every time apart from once, we went to the hospital after she gave birth to check whether there needs any stitches, because this has nothing to do with me or the woman. It's like, some knowledge is needed there, some medical knowledge.
Thank you. Something else that really hit me is when you talk about the primal brain. This is what you know, that I do the Iceman rituals of swimming in the ice water, and the breath work actually is meant to connect you to that primordial part of your brain, which actually intuitively knows how to heat up the body. And so it's funny that that's the same, almost the same mechanism. And I was thinking, is the breath the same? But I think the breath is not. It's kind of similar.
Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth.
But I would say, Bambos, but wouldn't you say, like a few shows ago, Bambos was like having a hard time, and I noticed that I compensated for it by talking more, just trying to like
he got very choppy, someone said.
Yeah. And it was interesting because they said to me afterwards, like, you know, Andy, you should. And I said, do me a favor, next time write in the chat box, Andy, take a breath. And in some ways, what I kind of hear, and that's what I've often felt, is like, well, the breath or whatever that break is and pattern gives you an opportunity to recenter again and feel what's really going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't give it to yourself. You need someone, an outside like you, as I hear, as the doula, to say, hey, take the breath, get centered again. And then, you know, the thing, you can't necessarily see what you're blind to at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really nice. Thanks.
Yeah. And the similarity on what Bambos was saying, I would say is, I like to describe birth in 3 words: a focus, trust, and surrender. And both the ice bath and birth, it needs that very focus of internal into what is to be able to hold this, to hold the intensity. You have to focus. Otherwise, if you slipped, you're gone. So it's almost like you hold the mind focus. And
beautiful.
Yes. And it's the recentering that Andy was saying. But that's the other thing that breath does, is releasing. So when we're born, we naturally have these mechanisms of like regulating our emotions and our body temperature and everything. We know we're very intelligent. Yeah. So it is all about remembering how to do that. And breath is the only thing that has always been there for us. We just like, we stopped it. We can really reach it in our heads, so we don't breathe.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as that, I would say.
But like focus, trust, and surrender.
Yeah.
Those, if I look at my life, forgetting about you're discussing birth, but that's my life. Like that is my life. You know, I did the course with Bambos. I think those were the core elements, like that were taught. And I would call, in my mind, focus is what's the intention I set out with whatever I'm going to do. Trust is allowing myself to say, I'm going to do it, and it's fine, whatever the outcome is. I'm just going to trust in the process. I'll use the word process a lot, as I just trust the process and don't get caught up in the outcome. And then the surrender is, and whatever shows up was whatever was supposed to be there. So just follow it. Like, don't resist it because it wasn't what you thought the outcome was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So as I hear you speak, I laughingly say, wow, those are the 3 core elements that I all see like guiding me in my own life. And of course, why wouldn't they be also applicable to birth?
Yeah, it's very interesting how you describe the focus, because you said a goal.
Intention. No, not a goal. Yeah. Not a goal. An intention. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Intention. But you said intention, so it's like, it's more like oriented to that. So I felt like the difference in birth is like, it's so inwards. It's almost like the focus is this pillar where it allows to respond to whatever is there. And yes, the intention is to birth the baby, but in between, it's just like you have no idea how that will happen. So all you can do is just stay in.
Oh, I love it. Well, I mean, in a weird way, it almost feels in my own system like there's surrender at that moment as well then. Because if you stay in focus, of course, there's just, there is only focus. Oh, that's beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
I like
we have some comments.
Yeah, we have JC who's in Kentucky, and he always writes and says, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but I'm learning along the way. So thank you, JC, for being in your pickup and letting us take the trip with you today.
We have Bulelang, who's in South Africa.
Yeah, live is for real life experiences. Nice.
And he always supports us. So he's watching on YouTube, but he's also watching on Facebook, because now he's going to be commenting on Facebook.
And the one thing that was really nice is that JC wrote me yesterday, and he said, oftentimes I learn more from Bulalang's questions than some of the guests that are on the show. Bolalong is actually our third person on the sofa that is located in South Africa.
We should let him join the couch.
I would love to have him on the couch one day. Now, this was earlier in the show, and I thought this was really sweet. We didn't get into this, but you used the word when we said doula as the Greek word for servant. And then Bolalong says being a servant is an honor. It is only twisted in the world where there are egos. And I completely identify with that. When I was in, I was a director of a big computer company, and I had this ego that was really horrible. And then I sold everything I owned, and I started to just reduce down to just being. And I became, I would call the servant to another person's dream. And what I found is my life had so much meaning at the moment that I became the servant to another idea in the world that was bigger than anything I could have imagined. And I don't know if people understand what that feeling is, right? Because everyone thinks I got to do what, I've got to, the meaning comes from my purpose, my this, my that. But the idea that you can be a servant, or you could be serving another person's idea or a dream, is really a beautiful thing. Yeah. It was really nice that he commented on that.
Andy's wife.
Let's not call her that. Let's just call her
Andy's wife.
One of our favorite viewers.
Can the husband, partner, or the mother of the birthing person be the doula?
Yes. Shall I respond? Yeah. I would say yes. Just two things I want to say about these two different roles. The mother of the person, they must have a relationship as to which the mother is not taking on the daughter's pain, and she's not, trying to save her. Because can't she really hold space and be detached in the sense? So she needs to be in a space where she's like, I know this is her journey. I know she will go through the pain that is not pain, it's her journey to transform her. And the husband, I find this a different role. And I find it totally fascinating that after so many centuries, we have men coming back in birth. And the field of birth is so healing for them as well. They're feeling their own birth traumas, their relationship to their wife, to the feminine. So and he's going through his journey too. So a doula is for her dad, is for the dad too.
Oh yeah.
I loved what you said about the mother.
Yeah. It's true for so many things, right? How can you hold space for someone when you yourself aren't at peace with what's going on? So if the mother isn't at peace with the trauma of their daughter, then how could they do that?
End of 2019, I kind of hit my head in the sauna, and I went home, and I actually felt myself in my sleep that I was leaving my body. And actually, I got out of bed and I thought, oh, fuck, this could be it. So I sent Andy an email and I said, Andy, just do me a favor, just give me a quick call around 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, just check on me, see if I'm okay. And if for whatever reason I'm not picking up, like, come kick down the door. And if I'm in a coma, I would like you to pull the plug. Like, do not let me live for years on a coma, like end my life. And I put it on a timer and I forgot about it. And then he actually saw the email and he calls me. And of course I pick up. But the intention behind that is I would never trust my family to pull the plug, because they love me so much that they'll probably want to keep me alive as much as possible, as long as possible. And I knew Andy, he loves me, but he would not have an issue with honoring those wishes, and he'll do it from a very clean place. But apparently the email wasn't legal, so we had to do a lawyer thing.
Yeah, you have to sign something. If I'm going to take any responsibility for you, I'm not going to fight your family. I'm going to have to sneak into the hospital and pull a plug out and then run away.
Bolalong.
Gynecologists are the ones who take people to hospitals. That's interesting. I wouldn't want to throw everything on the gynecologist, Bolalong. I mean, society has a big role to play in what our perceptions are of what good or bad or whatever those things are. So, yeah.
I agree.
We gave away many things to other people that we're doing ourselves before. I think it is a model that suits the economic model we are in. Even simple things like planting food looks complicated now.
Oh,
beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Are you getting that, JC?
It's beautiful. I mean, that's a really fundamental thing, is that when we talk about going back to basics, we see how developed everything has become and we forget how simple it is. Like the beauty is when you see like kids that have been raised in a city that have no concept of where anything comes from. Like milk is just this thing that exists in the supermarket. It doesn't, there's no cow involved in it anymore.
In a carton.
Yeah.
This reminds me of Josh, of course, who has a concept called Make Soil. We've had him also on the podcast. And he actually has a movement where you make your own soil, grow your own food.
Yeah, and by doing that, I've gotten, because I did composting and now I do it regularly, and I've gotten more in contact with nature through that, because I've got to see the full cycle from food back to soil. And that's a loop, the feedback loop that we don't get to see anymore in society, because we throw it away and it goes away and we don't see it anymore. So we don't even get a chance to revel in this whole circle of life, right? Yeah. And then we have someone who we've never seen before.
Jeff Galejo. Interesting how breathing techniques have been implemented all over the world. Something so natural and essential was just too good to ignore.
Nice. Isn't that funny?
Like, learn how to breathe.
Yes, learn how to breathe. We're going to apply techniques. Have you had bad experiences?
Bad. It depends what you define as bad. As I feel like there's nothing as.
I like that Bambos looked at me with that look. What are those eyes that you had now? Share.
Well, it's like he never uses good or bad, but I guess he used it just to give context.
He's so well, Bambos.
I would say I would say bad in a way that, oh shit, I'm really scared for this baby's life or the mother's life. You were holding your breath, you were sweating, there was tension in your shoulders. Like, how are we going to navigate this?
Damn, you're good, Bambos. Thank you for the translation.
Let me walk you through the emotion.
I've learned this. So what I'm about to say, I've learned this from one of the pregnant women I work with. She said she did an unassisted home birth with no doula. It was her fourth child, just with her husband and her, mostly her. And she goes, the one thing I had to accept in order for me to be able to really bring a life into the world the way that I was guided and I know I'm capable of doing was death. So really, to give birth, we really need to accept death. In our society, we tend to follow like good, bad, yes to that, no to that. Death, and we don't celebrate death at all. We celebrate birth, but like we don't celebrate death, which happens for me like many times in our life. So in that sense, I tend to see everything like a continuation of life, like a response to something deeper. And I'm saying this, I'm not saying this lightly. I'm saying this having seen intense experiences in birth, but always going back in the journey of pregnancy, having met that woman and having seen like, I would give this much to one woman and she would take it and apply it and like grow it. And I would say this much to a woman and she would be like 9 months not being able to even go near it. So I say everything that we experience is our journey, and it's so not random. So just to make it more, if you want to hear the bad experiences in terms of like babies dying or I've only had one experience where I felt in that threshold, just because when I described before that state of being so present and in service, and I like what Andy said, because literally I don't feel it's me that I'm doing anything. I'm just there holding space. And sometimes, yes, I need to put my own emotions on the side and deal with them later, just so I can be there for the woman. So in that one case, it was like, wow, a very intense birth in a hospital. And when the baby came out, it wasn't a home birth, it was a hospital. So when the baby came out, it was blue and it was like really flat. So it was not breathing. It was, you can say, I've never seen a baby like this, like flat. So it was those moments, like, you don't know what's going to happen. Of course, the mom didn't know what was happening. They just took the baby away. But if I want to be really honest, what happened minutes before the baby came out? I look up the wall of the hospital and I see a picture of Jesus. And I'm not particularly religious, but I'm very connected to Jesus as a consciousness and what he holds. So I'm like, interesting. And I had a feeling of, no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. And obviously I didn't know what was going to follow. And I had that sense of, hold this feeling in this room right now. Everything is okay. And no matter, it was as if I was watching what was happening, but not really going in the panic and going in. It's like the accident you described, Andy. It's like this, what is happening now? I'm just moving. I don't know what's moving me, but something bigger than me is telling me that my role, at least, was to hold that vibration. And yes, the baby lived. They told the mother that he's going to be brain damaged, but he's not brain damaged. Perfectly. And she recognizes how everything was for her growth and for the unity of her family and bigger purpose.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that was curious if there had ever been a situation where the baby didn't survive.
Yeah.
Or the mother actually, either way, because the mother might also have complications.
Like when I'm hearing you speak, Stefanie, I can't, like, what resonates for me is when I'm in ice water in really extreme conditions with the snowstorms and just finding myself in that and sometimes not even being able to put on my shoes. And then I have to run 20 minutes barefoot and kind of figure it out step by step how I'm going to get home. Now, is there any pre-work that you like? Do you need to prepare yourself mentally a couple of days before this? I mean, you get a call, hey, the baby's coming. But is there anything you'll do before or after this for yourself as a self-care, or like, how do you go into it and how do you come out of it?
Okay, so I feel like I chose this, and because I chose this, all my life is based around it. Meaning, if you're a lawyer, you read, you know the laws and stuff. So my work was to prepare myself to be able to hold this space inside myself and to sharpen my intuition and my ability to feel with my body, I would say, and go through everything that life is showing me through my experiences of, like, too much care. How do I deal with my emotions as a human when something intense happens? So learning how to release my emotions and not hold them in. Let's say dissect my experiences. Yes. So practical things. I meditate every day and just have a relationship with myself and my inner world, really.
I've never heard anyone describe their job in a way that I could just take that and slap it on my job.
And his wife would say, why do you always have to make it about you?
No, but honestly, the way you described life is you stay present enough that you're prepared for whatever shows up, because you've spent your whole life preparing for it. And the whole point is, if you're staying centered in a situation, whatever that situation happens, you'll be able to allow for the space. And you said vibration, and I would use that word sometimes as well, is that you're allowing for that vibration to serve the space. And if you feel uncentered in yourself, like you mentioned, then the job is to dissect what is it in me that can't be present for what's going on here, and how do I find peace there, and where do I stretch myself to learn and grow and make peace with something, because that's where I know I'm attached to an outcome, to what I think they need or whatever. So the weird thing, or the beautiful thing, let's put it that way, is that we talk about a life of service. Going back to that term, actually, as I speak to you, I kind of see my life differently, because I do feel my life is a life of service, but it's not of service to anything or anyone. It's a state of being. And that state will serve me in ways I don't yet know, because it always evolves. And like, this is an example of that state. Just we didn't even have this show planned until a few hours ago, and now all of a sudden it's like, yes, this is the wonderful chaos. Life emerges. Because you could imagine, we don't have a show, all of a sudden we're freaking out, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Instead, we're like, hey, Bambos is like, yeah, I got somebody who knows what we can talk about.
And then he says, if she doesn't come, we'll talk about your sex life. I'm like, okay.
We'll always get people on for that. Beautiful. I had two practical questions.
Give me a
Did
second.
you have? Yeah.
Like what you just shared, like everything he shared, I also saw that. When Andy speaks from that space, his voice goes up. I can feel him, and everything you said is on point. Like, if anyone asks me how to describe Andy, like a shitstorm can hit him, like he'll feel things, but I've never seen him fall to the ground, complain about his life circumstances. Like there's a groundedness, and the word that I always come back to is consistency. That's why I trust you, by the way.
That's nice.
Okay.
I don't know if that's good or anything. I just hear it like, okay.
For me, it's
yeah. What I do know is you smell bullshit. So if I wasn't consistent, you'd be the first one to let me know. That's your bullshit meter is very strong.
And to what degree do I love you so much that I don't even see that anymore?
Question for you. I have a weird question, random questions that are stuck in my head that I know we're over time. And I didn't want. If someone has a birth at home, it's kind of weird because it's off the radar. So you could theoretically have a baby that's not in the system, and then basically they don't need to have a birth certificate or anything. So how do you deal with the administrative side of this in just a short understanding? Like, you have a birth at home, there's a baby that exists in the world, like no one might know of that baby. So how do you get the baby in the system? How do we make sure that baby pays taxes?
It's about the taxes, right? and traveling, of course.
Yeah.
So
hilarious.
The way, I don't know how it works in other countries, that the home birth is part of the system. Here, that is not part of the system. You gotta make sure you go to the hospital just to say, like, I gave birth.
Oh, you do have to go to the hospital to say we had this happen.
Yes. Yes. So the woman that didn't go to the hospital right before her birth, which parenthesis is not a very nice thing to do just after you gave birth and you're at home in your bed. She went a few days after, but she had a midwife coming in, which that's the reason that she prevented going to the hospital. But you go to hospital just to be witnessed that you gave birth.
Wow. Yeah, I thought there'd have to be some administration. You can't get away. You can't be out of the system completely.
Unless you're Julia.
Yeah.
You know about Hidden Paradise, we interviewed Julia, and she lived in a hippie community, and she would just give birth in the wild.
Yeah, she had a teepee. They gave birth on the teepee in Spain, where you actually did some of your own training, as you mentioned. Orkiva.
It's a very big. Orkiva is where I was actually.
By the way, do you know the woman who was supposed to have been on this show that you replaced today? Do you know that woman as well?
I didn't tell her name.
Ooh.
Brooks. Her name was what was her name now? Something Brooks. She does the midwife. It's called the midwifery of some sort in Orkiva. That's the idea. Yeah.
Oh wow, maybe I have heard of her.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah, I forgot that she's a friend of Julia's.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Did you have another question, Andy?
I did, but I forgot it, so it's okay, Bambos. Please.
It's old age.
It's old age. I've lost the plot.
I'm complete, and I look forward to having you on another show soon.
Yeah, we'll have you on another show very soon. Thank you for coming on. Actually, it's really great.
Yeah.
I honestly, as I mentioned earlier, and I like to own it, is that I didn't think I'd enjoy this podcast half as much as I did. Like, I thought I was going to discuss a concept that had no association with anything that I do or have any actual real interest in.
I felt the same. And also,
really?
Yeah,
well, I felt excited.
Well, I know, I could feel it, and therefore I felt excited from it, right? So,
but you chose the right background. That's why you got excited.
Yeah, Bambos chose that background.
Move, let us see it.
She's not pregnant. She's not pregnant, but anyway.
Exactly. But Bambos loved it. I wanted the baby, and Bambos says, no, this is far better.
we don't see the belly because Andy's head is in the way.
Because my belly's in the way.
Stefanie, thank you so much for being with us, your time and sharing.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you for being with us.
It was nice speaking with you.
Yes.
Love you.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 So, and the end of the week.
Yeah, end of the week. It's Friday.
159 episodes.
We're banging them out, Bambos. 150. You'd almost think we know what we're doing now with 159. You know what the scary thing is the more episodes we get, the more I do think, wow, there is the idea that we should know what we're doing if we have 200 of these things.
For those of you watching, we have no clue what we're doing. Where this is going.
If you're ever a guest on the show and you ask us for questions ahead of time, we cannot send them to you. That we guarantee you.
It's unscripted.
It's whatever guides us in the moment. And hopefully it carries some of your curiosities as well.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the shows are next week, but we know. But what we can do is say this. Every weekend, we take podcasts, the edited versions of our live broadcast. Cass Midgley from Everyone's Agnostic Past, he edits them for us, and we give a really nice condensed version. And we have 2 of these coming up for this weekend. Nice. So Saturday and Sunday, you'll have new episodes coming online. So I hope you enjoy those.
And next weekend, we're going to be interviewed.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, but we'll announce that. It's probably not live. But so yeah, we'll tell you when that's coming up. And if you haven't seen, I also did a podcast with Delissa Hawking, and Delissa's been on our podcast twice, psychic from Las Vegas, and it's really nice because I got to be on her end, on the opposite end of the mic on this one.
It's a 30-minute podcast. I listened to it twice this morning. Yeah. It was rich.
Nice. Oh, what I can't understand is you already know so much about. I've been on so many podcasts, so I'm actually fascinated that you do listen to another one and find it informative. That's really sweet. What did you take out of that one? You did tell me.
Yeah.
You said living with urgency was something that came out of that one for you.
Yeah, but also you spoke. You said something about the work that you do, the writing the last letter. You mentioned that it wasn't restricted to a kind of person, like it could be for atheists, for Christians, for anyone. And you've never talked about that. Like, I was like, oh yeah, it is for everyone.
Yeah, I wanted the last letter, which was that tour going through asking people to write letters to loved ones. I thought, why does this have to be limited to any religion or anything? It should be agnostic. Actually, anyone would be able to do this and not react negative to it. Of course, it may not be emotionally comfortable, but it shouldn't create a negative reaction.
And I also loved which was already an insight that I had from you already. The fact that the people that were old, and wrote a last letter to their parents, and the people that killed themselves,
the
who left people behind. And because I have been suicidal in my life, that really touched me.
Yeah, and you also laughingly informed me of something, which was that the way I primed them to write the letters had an impact on what they wrote, and I hadn't given that much thought, because you said, because you said write a letter as if it'll be the last one you write that person. It would have been different if I had said, if it's the last letter you'll ever write to somebody else, as if it was their own death.
It wasn't only that, you wrote a letter to your mother.
Yeah.
So with that respect, I can imagine people are like, oh, I'm going to write a letter to my parents.
Yeah. That's a word. That's a term, priming.
Yeah.
I prime their brain already in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a show on priming, because I think that's also, maybe we have done a show on priming. I don't even know.
We haven't.
Love you all.
Guys, have a beautiful weekend.
Friday till Monday.
Have a great weekend, whatever that means during COVID times.
Enjoy the podcast. Bye.